Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host, who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about unusual literature, out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels throughout the war-torn Middle East. What does that mean? That's a hint about what I'll be reading today. So it is Short Story Tuesday, a lovely day to talk about excellent short form literature. Although as of late, with the exception of I guess last week, I've been stumbling upon a lot of real bad short form literature. That might be due to the fact that sometimes people get book deals and they shouldn't get book deals. Which is kind of harsh to say, but applies to some people, So yeah, today I want to talk about a book that focuses on the war in Afghanistan and the military and feelings of just ennui. Is it? It might be ennui, or feelings of being lost while as a soldier. So the book that the short story collection that I'll be talking about is Bring Out the Dog by Will Mackin. Interesting cover. So yeah, this is a series of non-fiction short stories about one author in particular, Will Mackin. Will is he was a Navy SEAL operating in Afghanistan, and this short story collection deals with some of the stuff that happened while he was in Afghanistan and while he was preparing for deployment back home, and a little bit after his deployment. So it's got that kind of feel for it. I picked it up from the library, totally by surprise. I just saw it and I was like, I should check it out. And kind of regret it because it's not that good, to be honest. But I do want to talk about one short story in particular, The Last Troop. And so I'll provide a little summary, a little analysis, and then I'll move on from there. The Last Troop focuses presumably on Will as he is moving around Afghanistan. It might be Iraq too, but with his fellow soldiers, his squad, they are kind of wandering aimlessly at the start of the short story. They just got off of a bad mission where they bombed a sort of bunker area where the Taliban were hanging out. But unfortunately, the Taliban managed to not die completely, and so in the skirmish that happened, their fellow soldier Yaz, he ended up dying, and so now they're carrying around his ashes and figuring out where to scatter them and how to honor his memory, because Yaz is no longer with the squad. So they're sort of wandering around aimlessly looking for the Taliban who are in the area, but they keep finding nothing really, and so Will, he's very I want to say lost, sort of confused, sort of this sense of hopelessness with the war, because it feels like the war is over and nobody told him, and he can't find anyone. So what is he to do? He's just going from area to area looking for the enemy. There is a translator with him, Joe. He has a longer form of name that I've forgotten and I'll put up there, but he basically translates in the native language for the squad, and I feel like they've gotten pretty close, but Joe's like native-born Afghani life is probably hindering that full connection, given that they view Afghanis as the enemy. Like they're asking Joe, like, oh, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? And Joe's like, well, I had a bad teacher when I had lived here in my younger years, but I never got to tell him like what's what, and I would really love to pay him a visit in his house in the forest. So can we do that? And they're like, oh yeah, let's do that. They get in the helicopter, fly there, and then they get to the cabin where the old man teacher dude is, and that's pretty much where the story ends. Like they force the man to get on his knees, arrest him, and then search his cabin, and that's the end of the story, which feels like a really weird and petty ending to the story. Doesn't really feel complete. And that's the vibe I get from many of the stories in this collection. So in terms of analysis, there's very little that I like about this short story and the entire collection as a whole. There is a sense of sadness and a sense of aimlessness that plagues this story. It reminds me a lot of the movie Jarhead, where the main character is like he goes to war, like the first Gulf War, and he's hoping to get a kill of some sort, and that ends up not happening for him for a variety of reasons, that things just get in the way and he's not able to get the kill that he wants. So he like the whole feeling of being in Iraq, and when he gets back home, like it's like he's proud of being a Marine, but he's also a bit sad about it. Like there's this empty feeling inside of him, and it's caused by going to war and seeing the horrors of war, which is what I feel like is happening here. There's the whole guilt over Yaz's death, and they try to reassure everyone like it's not your fault. This kind of thing happens, and I don't think they really get over it. And there's no clear direction because they're going from area to area, and they don't really know what they're looking for. And that's kind of a theme throughout many of the short stories, with them just searching an area and just taking whatever they can find. Like in this case, it's the teacher who doesn't seem to serve a threat, yet they're just taking him and maybe to feel fulfilled in some sort of way. It is an interesting look at war and the experience of being in Iraq, and especially like like the idea of a just war. Like maybe in World War II, you could justify this sort of aimlessness by saying at least you might be stopping Hitler or something, but there's no Hitler to stop. This is 2005, 2006. 2007, you've already stopped Saddam Hussein. What more is there to do besides the Taliban? I'm starting to get go on a rant here. I'm gonna have to stop myself there, because there's a whole lot that I don't like about the short stories here, like the fact that there's sadness and grief and aimlessness, but there's also admitting to a war crime. Why arrest the teacher beyond the spirit of vengeance for the translator guy? Why are you picking on somebody who is living in the forest by themselves and doesn't seem to have any connection to the Taliban? The story ends before they can establish a connection to the Taliban. So I would say no, it's just a teacher in the woods and he's not really looking for a fight. So it seems like he just wrote about the time that they all went to a teacher's house to unload steam on some poor helpless fool. And he does this a couple times. He arrests some kid who has a black box, which appears to be a radio of some sorts that might radio their position, but they also don't definitively state if it's a radio or even if the kid who had it knew what it was. So they're really highlighting here the various war crimes that are taking place in Iraq and Afghanistan, and also why the people in Iraq and Afghanistan hate American troops, because they're marching into the country and pretending they're the police when in fact there's no general purpose beyond stopping the Taliban, which was a threat they created in the first place, and it only stands to further destabilize the Middle East. And I feel like this is representative of the war memoir genre as a whole. Like, the genre as a whole does a really great job of saying war is madness, war is sad, war is a terrible thing. But then like they followed up by treating like the Taliban, the people of Iraq, the people of Afghanistan, wherever the war is taking place, as like inhuman in a lot of ways. And he's like, the way he describes the Taliban is inhuman at times. You're presenting the Middle Easterns as others, as people worthy of scorn or whatever vendetta you're on, and then like but at the same time you're trying to say, oh poor me, like I witnessed the horrors of war, I don't want to go back. And it like every single war memoir like does this, and it doesn't feel like the first time it was pretty interesting, but every subsequent time it just feels like it's another story, another brick in the wall. So like I don't like. There's a lot of praise for how the writing is, and stuff like that, and I will admit it's pretty good. But to give it a lot of praise just for that is like saying a tomato, like, oh, that is a beautiful looking tomato, so let's heap praise on it. At the end of the day, it's still a tomato, and it's not going to get any better than a tomato. So I don't really like this story or this book in general. It seems to like overly indulge in war for the sake of just someone telling their story, and I don't think it's really noteworthy, the story that is told. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to recommend it to those of you out there. If you want to see someone admit to war crimes and be a sad case, read the president's Twitter. Overall, I'm really just disappointed because like I had anticipated like this being a good story, because I feel like I've been on a streak of subpar short stories as of late, which is not really fun when you're doing Short Story Tuesday. You want to have something to talk about, something good, and there's not a lot to talk about with these books. He just describes what happens, and there's very little substance to it beyond the war crimes and the sadness. So unfortunately for that, if you disagree with what I've said, or you simply you've read the story before, because I think it was in the New Yorker, if you have something to say about it, feel free to comment below. I would love to hear from you. We can have a discussion about this. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe, so that Short Story Tuesday can get out to other people. And until then, I wish you the best of times in your weird and military-ish travels. Farewell.